Welcome to Tired Old Queen at the Movies with Steve Hayes and me, Johnny. Now let's go see Steve.
Johnny. Tired old queen at the movies. Oh, Johnny. You know, we hadn't really done a film that had a family flavor to it. So for this month, I chose 1945's National Velvet, directed by Clarence Brown and starring Mickey Rooney, Elizabeth Taylor, Donald Crisp, Angela Lansbury, and in her Academy Award-winning performance, Anne Revere. Now, this was based on a novel by Enid Bagnold, who had written it about growing up in England in the 1930s, and it was about a young girl who is the third daughter of a butcher in a small English coastal town.
Come on now.
Usually when people say National Velvet, they say, well, it's about a horse. It's not about a horse. This is a wonderful story, coming-of-age story about an adolescent girl.
Velvet, put that back. It aches me when I eat. It's a devil plate.
Elizabeth Taylor was just at the right age to play this. Originally, they had even thought of Jean Tierney to play this part, but it went to Elizabeth Taylor, who had come over from England and had been doing her time, starting with Jane Eyre.
Eat your bread, Jane.
This made her a star. Velvet is a girl who dreams a lot. She dreams about horses. Every night she comes home, she gets into bed, and she pretends she's riding horses in her bed until she falls asleep.
You're an odd one, Velvet.
This is my driving now. I'm only allowed on Fridays. I've got 2 minutes more driving. Come on, Ma.
This family consists of Donald Crisp, who's the father, Anne Revere, who's the mother, Angela Lansbury, who's the oldest daughter, then there's Elizabeth Taylor, Juanita Quigley, and then there's little Jackie Jenkins, who's one of the cutest little boy actors MGM ever came up with. He was just a natural.
Say you're sorry. Well?
He's thinking.
Now, nobody really speaks with a British accent, I should make this clear. There's a few British actors in this, but it's MGM, so pretty much everything is an Americanized accent.
Undignified. Strange.
The big star of this, surprisingly though, was not Elizabeth Taylor, but it was riding on the shoulders of Mickey Rooney, one of the most underrated actors in classic cinema. Mickey Rooney was wonderful.
That's why I don't ride anymore, because I'm afraid. I'm all soft and yellow inside, so I don't ride. That's why I'm no good to you when you need me most.
No.
And he plays a drifter. He's a young boy. He's grown up under, kind of bad circumstances, and he's hitchhiking. He's working his way across country. Velvet meets him on this road, and she is talking with him and asking him all sorts of questions. And she's on her way home from school, and they notice this guy has his horse, and he's let it loose. And it's this beautiful brown horse, and it runs and it jumps over the fence, and Mickey Rooney can't believe how high it jumped and made it over this fence, and little Velvet stands in front of the horse, and the horse stops for her.
Whoa!
And there's a rapport automatically. She falls in love with this horse. And then the horse's name is Pirate, but she calls him the Pie. And this guy who owns the pie cannot stand this horse. This horse gets away from him, runs into town, so they have a raffle to give the pie away. Well, she keeps hoping and hoping and hoping that she's gonna win this raffle, and she does. Anne Revere was this wonderful actress. She was a New England lady, she'd come from the stage. She sort of has a very comely face. Her whole thing was she was sort of grave. And she plays the most wonderful mother in this movie.
No reason why you should go on in the dark, Mr. Brown. There's that small bed in the stable you could have for tonight. You'll find a blanket, too.
She's just in charge of her world, in charge of her kitchen. She's got this wonderful relationship with her husband. They're kind of back and forth all the time. She's Miss Common Sense. He gets a little emotional about things. And she says to Mickey Rooney, you say you found this in your father's things? And he says, yes. And she says, and who was your father? And he tells her, and she goes, And she says, Mr. Brown, I think we could use some help this summer at the butcher shop. And he just, Mrs. Brown, we don't need another person here. Well, Mr. Brown, I think that the boy could stay for a while, and he could help Velvet with his horse. And so, that being said, Mickey Rooney goes out, and he's going to rob him that night. and he knows where they keep their money, and he has second thoughts, and he decides not to. Meanwhile, the mother takes Elizabeth Taylor up to the bedroom, and she says, Elizabeth Taylor says, Mama, did you know who his father was? And she says, yes. His father was my coach when I was the first woman to swim the English Channel when I was a teenager.
Breathed the spirit into me. Made me do it when I was ready to give up.
Why didn't you tell Ma about his father?
It wasn't the time for it. There's a right time for everything.
Mai has to find his place, and we're going to help him, so you're not going to tell him that I know who his father is. We're going to see how he does. So they develop this rapport, and they start training this horse. And suddenly they realize Mai has been a jockey for a while, and he realizes that this horse could win the Grand National. Velvet saves up her money, and they have to have enough money to go to the Grand National. And it's her big dream to get this horse in. And her mother takes her upstairs and opens up her trunk and pulls out a pouch. And in the pouch are all these gold coins. And it's all the money she won for swimming the English Channel. And she gives it to Velvet and says,
Enjoy each thing, then forget it and go on to the next. There's a time for everything. There's a time for having a horse in the Grand National, being in love, having children. Yes, even for dying. All in proper order at the proper time.
I don't want to ruin the story for you, but it just goes and it becomes magical. And you fall in love with every single character in this movie. It's MGM at its very best. Clarence Brown was one of those directors. He had directed The Rains Came. He directed Anna Karenina. He also directed a year after this, The Yearling, one of the great, great stories. He was great with kids. He was really good at humane and sensitive stories. And he brought out the very best in actors. Elizabeth Taylor trusted him implicitly, and she always said this was her favorite movie. And as a result, you watch her blossom, and you believe every single step along the way. This movie was such a hit that they gave the horse to Elizabeth Taylor at the end of the shooting. And it turned out that the horse was the grandson of Man o' War, which was the great racing horse of the 20s that had won all the big races, Triple Crown winner. And Anne Revere won the Academy Award as Best Supporting Actor that year in 1945 for this mother role. And it was wonderful because she had been nominated for the Song of Bernadette the year before, and she would be nominated again for Gentleman's Agreement, and then she was blacklisted. And that was the end of her career. Angela Lansbury was up against her for the Oscar because Angela Lansbury not only did National Velvet that year, but she did the Harvey Girls, which we'd shown on Untitled Queen at the Movies. She played a saloon girl, and she also played in The Picture of Dorian Gray, and she was up for the Oscar the same year. It's a wonderful Technicolor movie. It's got this score that's so wonderful by Herman Stothard, and it has one of the great final scenes. MGM was always very particular about how their movies ended. They wanted you going out with this like yearning just to have it continue, and you do. You're gonna love this movie. It is one of the best. Elizabeth Taylor, Mickey Rooney, Donald Crisp, Anne Revere, Angela Lansbury, Jackie Jenkins, and Clarence Brown's classic, National Velvet. Easy boy. Let's all go to the line. They said, what's in the jar? My tooth. They said, wow, look at your tooth. He said, yes, I ate it. I swallowed it. And they go, oh, well, how'd you get it in the jar? Never mind.